Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. I do want to let everyone know on this first episode of 2020 that our entire catalog of your welcome episodes is now available both on YouTube, Spotify, and whatever podcasts can be found. And speaking of old episodes, we have with us a dear old friend of mine, emphasis on the old, Dave Landau, who I knew from the Kumia show when we were both in Compound Media. Now you are the second banana on Louder with Crowder with Steven Crowder. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How about you? Happy New Year. Let's get that off the table.
I'm such a troll that part of me wonders if I should spend this entire year wishing every single guest for 52 weeks Happy New Year. Let's see how long I can carry this forward.
Especially if it gets really unhappy.
Yeah, like some kind of terrorist incident. Happy New Year.
Just the same day.
I saw my father's arm on the television.
I had to identify 3 family members. Well, Happy New Year, though. It's a whole new year for you.
Yeah, it's all uphill from here.
Well, the trolling that I loved, I actually saw on your Twitter the other day, was the guy who came at you, and then you said you wish that his mom could take back.
Wait, let's tell this whole story.
Okay.
A lot of people got upset by this, and to me, this is Twitter at its finest.
Yes.
Someone came at. Here's the thing: I was just on Lex Friedman's podcast, and there was a clip that went around because I was making the point that I disagreed with how Sam Harris went after Joe Rogan because he got kind of very personal, and the point I made is, I wouldn't do that with someone who I had a relationship with publicly. If I had an issue with you, I would call you because then publicly I'm backing you into a corner. It's not going to give you the space to change your mind, right? It's like you're kind of digging in heels. So, but at the same time, if someone's a rando on Twitter, I owe them nothing but contempt. So, this guy came at me in a kind of very aggressive way. And I just made the comment about how, like, you're just saying this because your mom told me she was upset the abortion didn't take. And he goes, "You moron, I was adopted."
It was the best. Because the guy was basically like, yeah, you're right.
It's like, it's not that she didn't want me while she was pregnant. She didn't want me after she saw me.
No, she did. Yeah. Well, yeah, either that or she didn't have $400, but she did have a blanket and a fire station nearby. Just left you there with a sign that said, "Please take one." It was so funny to look at. And he thought he won. That was the best part of the argument. He's like, "You idiot, I'm adopted." Yeah. I said your mom didn't want you.
It was very dark because I think adoption is one of the greatest things someone can do.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this also on that Lex episode, like Nick Cersei adopted a teenage kid, and I'm like, from my perspective, you're a hero. You save a kid's life, like that's all that needs to happen. So for him to self-own it that way was really so we're starting the year off on a good note. I feel.
It was just the lack of self-awareness in the reply that made me laugh so hard.
So let's talk a bit about like going from Compound to Louder with Crowder. Crowder is much less edgy than the paywall stuff that we were used to, and that like your stand-up, you have a very dark sense of humor. So are there any times when you're on that show when you've got that good line and you're like, yeah, I better not?
Yep. I mean, there's no other way I can really put it. There's a lot of times where I know I have to hold back because we do have like the YouTube overlords watching us all the time, and we get suspended for weeks on end. Sometimes, like right now, we're suspended until the 11th, so that's when we're going back.
What is suspended? There's different types of suspensions, right? What kind of suspensions have happened?
This all of it has pretty much been medical misinformation, which all we've done is repeated something the CDC said. We put up the links, we make it available. Everything that we have is truth and has it behind it. And like we prove it, that way they don't.
Well, you don't even have to say it's true. You just have to say, this is something that experts have claimed. And here is where we're repeating what people who actually know medicine are saying. It's not like Crowder is saying go drink bleach like the president did, which works, by the way, and everyone should do it.
Oh, no, I tried it. It's great.
It's great.
If you're Artie, you stab yourself 6 times, then drink it.
Oh, you really are a modern day Artie Lang, aren't you?
Thank you. A Renaissance man.
Yes.
That's basically what we do. There's so many times where I do have to bite my tongue, to be honest. And that's not anything against the show. It's just because I know we're being watched. It's an entirely different platform. Anthony does not care what you say at all, and it's not the crowd minds what I say. It's just there's certain things that they'll come after us for, and a lot of it will be adult content, stuff like that as well. So they'll kind of go in on something and then end up claiming that it's something else. They'll be offended by something somebody said because of it's I don't know, against a transgender, wasn't making fun, whatever it said about whatever group is marginalized. And then we'll prove we didn't say anything wrong. And then they'll go, well, yeah, but this was also medical misinformation.
Okay.
It's pretty crazy to deal with, and like the legal jargon behind it it makes no sense when I look at it. From
It's
what
Go
I
ahead.
can tell, Susan Wojcicki is basically just upset that we had Clint Howard play her, so she's still just holding a grudge. I
It
don't
it,
know.
it does seem very incongruous to me that of all the people out there, who I'm like 1 or 2 degrees of separation apart from, that Crowder would be the one who's getting targeted or who's getting suspensions. Because as far as like, right of center comedians go, he's hardly, some sort of edgelord.
No, there's a lot of sketches that even I've written that have been turned down, and I filmed them. And then there's sketches that I did. Like there was a sketch where it's this gay guy in Mexico, or I should explain it better. It's a commercial where you don't know what it's for, but it's just a guy and his son and the son's boyfriend. And it's a commercial that was in Mexico. And so the dad's like looking at them riding horseback on a ranch and just like, ugh. And then they're sitting in a diner and the boyfriend's ordering for the other boyfriend. And he's just staring at his menu, wishing he was dead. And then he goes on Reddit and sees that gay people are okay. And then at the end, it just says Doritos in all rainbow. It makes no sense.
but but that got turned down.
No, that was the actual commercial.
Wait. No. Hold on. Okay, that was a commercial you filmed.
No, this was the actual commercial I then wrote a parody of. I swear to you.
There was a commercial where the dad goes on Reddit.
Yes. It's a Mexican commercial and looks and he's like, oh, well, Reddit says gay people are great.
I'm having listen, I know that we like that when Trump touched the orb, he unleashed like the forces of chaos magic throughout the universe. And now we have a literal deceased mummy as president who still is somehow more likable than the vice president, who's perfect, who's an adult capable of speaking.
Well, it's like Skeletor with dementia.
And diapers. You're telling me that there's, first of all, why is Doritos advertising in Mexico when they have actual nacho cheese tortillas?
That's a very good point.
That already does not make sense to me. You know where we need to be selling more Doritos? Places where people don't have like tortilla chips. How about Mexico?
It's like, how about we do Chef Boyardee? Is that big in Naples? Let's go out there.
So and also, why is there a pro-gay Doritos ad in Mexico? It's like when Pride Month hits, and I'm sure you've seen this on the internet, how all the like BMW Twitter accounts throughout the world, or I think it was BMW, changed their logo to a rainbow, except for like BMW Saudi Arabia, which kept the logo the same. Right. So why is there a pro-gay ad in? I gotta look this up. Something's not adding up.
I'm telling you, it's a Mexican ad for Doritos. If you look it up, and no, I did actually get this put on, which I was lucky. What it is it's if you look up Crowder Reese's commercial, it's just me and like I wake up in bed.
Holy crap!
Yeah, told you, it's insane.
Well, you know what's insane, Dave?
Yeah,
I just Googled it. The headline on Yahoo. This is literally the headline. Okay, this is Yahoo. This isn't like, some random blog. This gay Doritos ad for Dia de los Muertos is making everyone ugly cry. So only ugly people have an issue
Well, that's
with
fair.
why Doritos is promoting gay relationships in Mexico.
That's what's amazing though, is it's just funny to me. Because the whole commercial, it basically seems like if it was a movie, this guy had like cartel money. Like he owns a ranch. He's very well off. It's like you would have probably shot your kid, let's be honest, if it were real. And you watch this whole commercial, and then at the end, it's just like Doritos. I just think it's funny. It's like if two guys are just one guy's blowing another guy, and at the end, it's just like Cheetos. It's silly. Like it to
But
me, it's
wait,
just
I gotta
funny.
say something else. Like in this Yahoo article, they have a tweet from a gay person,
Yeah,
and he's literally said he attaches the video,
yeah.
and he says, "Excuse me while I cry about this new Doritos commercial." Okay, so it got to him, but the headline says, "This gay Doritos ad is making everyone ugly cry." That is the shadiest thing I've ever seen. This is beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh
And I
my
just
God.
love that they attack a gay guy because they don't realize what he's saying.
I don't think they're attacked. I think there was kind of a disconnect.
Yeah, but they accidentally.
How did you come upon this?
Oh, we saw it one day and I was
Well, I was
watching it.
eating gay Doritos.
Yeah, I was eating rainbow Doritos and I thought, what's this all about? They were real salty and I liked them way more than the old ones. Um, no, I was just watching this commercial and then at the end it just said Doritos and I was like, what did I just watch? Like I just saw it on the internet. So I made a Reese's one, which we did end up getting it put on, but I had to fight a little bit for it. Where if you look up like Dave Landau Reese's, I wake up and there's a woman in my bed and she's obviously my wife and we just have a dead marriage. And I go and I put on a suit and tie while I'm doing a Sam Elliott kind of voiceover. And then it's just sort of this meandering uh speech about roads and like where the road less traveled.
Yeah.
And I pull off and I buy a Reese's, fill my car up, pull over to the side of the road, dress up like a cowboy, keep driving. I pull into a rest area and then I walk in and I stick my dick in a glory hole and then I take a bite of the Reese's and it just says there's no wrong way. So
That makes more sense.
Doesn't it? Yeah, so I just thought it would be funny to kind of mock the commercial, and that's one thing that I like about being on the show is I can put out sketches that I think should be out there where it's not in any way. I think that the BMW thing and the Reese's thing, it really is just it's so pandering that to me it's almost anti-gay.
Well, yeah, I was talking about this with Blair White over the weekend. I had this tweet where I said only corporate America can make sodomy and perversion seem downright boring. It's
Right.
like if you watch corporate like sitcoms or dramas, their idea of a gay relationship is having brunch with your pals and then hugging your boyfriend and giving him a kiss in the cheek. Like
Yes.
that's it. So they want to like have people accept a lifestyle, which I obviously am very much for people accepting it, but the way
course.
they portray it, it's like old ladies. It's completely emasculated.
Well, yeah, you look at any sitcom that's ever taken place that involves any gay character, and it's always like the way over the top Jack on Will and Grace
Yeah.
or whoever it is. It's always a almost cartoonish 1950s caricature of what a gay guy is. Like it's basically just Liberace without the sparkles, and they somehow think that that's a movement.
Right.
And it's so transparent that I just find it has to be called out. And why I found that one was to be so funny is it looked like a short film someone made, and Doritos was like, "Could I just buy that and put Doritos on the end of it?" Because
Yeah.
it just appeared.
Wow. Okay. So, and wait, Crowder ran with that commercial, the
He
Reese's
let me
one?
do it. Yeah, I had to push a little bit, but he eventually let me film it. And like I did another one where we do fake commercials. So one was for water, which I got away. It wasn't like a bad one. It was just about a guy. saying how water is good for the body, then talking about how his wife left him and is with another guy, and then those kids call that guy dad now. And it's just this voiceover guy who just keeps getting more and more depressed by the end of the commercial. And then I did a commercial for opioids where we haven't aired it yet, but it's like 3 different people who are addicted to opioids. So it's like a mom at the grocery store, and she's like, my doctor says I'm too pretty to be addicted, then like passes out on the steering wheel and is drooling. And then there's me who, like, I'm walking up to a shady hotel and I'm like, sometimes I have to do bad things to get money and to fuel my habit. And these 2 guys open up the hotel door, and they're both wearing like wolf and bear masks and dressed in tuxedos. So like by the end of it, I'm just getting like money thrown at me while I'm crying and have a gag ball in, and then it's just like opioids is this commercial.
Good Lord.
And it's so dark. He's like, I just don't think I can do this, because even for Pearl Harbor Day, I had to write something that I ended up filming, but it wouldn't work for the show. And he's like, what? And it was, somebody was talking about male tampons on some show. So I came up with Tampax Pearl Harbors. And it's basically me just standing there, just with my pants covered in blood, and just going like, and then a jogger runs up and is like, oh, hey, nice. I see you're having a rough time of the month. I'm like, yeah, what can you do? I'm fine, but my pussy, that's a different story altogether. And I'm completely a guy.
Yeah.
There's nothing feminine in it at all. And I'm just like, I got to tell you, this is the second time I've changed my pants today, and it's only 9 a.m. I had to throw away furniture this morning. And then it drops tampon bombs like for Harvard.
Oh my God.
So like, I like to, it's just the level of parody I can do. And then I like to write sketches like that. And then I can get away with ones, I think, that are a little less edgy. But I do like to just put them all out there, have them made. But it's a fun thing to do for me, because it kind of allows me to put that edge into the show without worrying about YouTube watching it, because they're not looking for the commercials and the sketches. They're looking for the actual dialogue on the show.
Hey guys, it's 2022 and January is all about positive change. And for many of you, quitting smoking should be at the top of that list. And Fume makes it so you can safely quit in a way that feels normal, with a non-addictive natural inhaler to replace that hand-to-mouth habit of smoking. I love this sponsor, and I'm concerned with your guys' health. So what is Fume? It's a wooden inhaler handcrafted in Canada to comfortably replace the hand-to-mouth habit. What you do, you take one of their flavored cores. It's infused with 100% natural plants like peppermint, cinnamon. There's no smoke, no vape, no nicotine to worry about. Everyone's journey nicotine-free is different, and Fume offers over a dozen unique flavors. Peppermint, black pepper, their bestseller Conquer. It's got this earthy, minty flavor. Right now, Fume is running their smoke-free January sale. You get 20% off their most popular cores for quitting. And as a listener of Your Welcome, they're giving you an extra 10% off your order when you use promo code Malice10. Isn't that nice? So guys, just head to breathefume.com, breathefum.com/malice, and use code Malice10 at checkout for an additional 10% off. That's breathefum.com/malice and code Malice10, and you could kick off the new year right and make this January a smoke-free year. Hey guys, you ever feel like you're being followed around the internet and maybe advertisers know a bit too much about you? So IPVanish VPN is here to help you take back your privacy and help you become anonymous on the internet. So what is IPVanish? It's a virtual private network, a VPN for short, which helps you safely browse the internet. You can use it on your computer, tablets, phones, even things like your Fire Stick when you stream media. When you use a VPN, all your data is encrypted. What you're reading, what you're watching, what you're searching, whatever it is you're doing. And that's important, because what you're doing on the internet is no one's business but yours. And now IPVanish is offering 65% off their annual plan. It's only $375 a month. Super easy to use. Turn on with one click. It runs in the background, helping you to protect while you're browsing the web. So go to ipvanish.com/malice and use code Malice to get your 65% off savings. Their annual plan is just $44.99 for the first year with our discount. This is the time to sign up. And IPVanish is the best of best. They've got a 4.7 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot. Remember, it's ipvanish.com/malice to get the deal and start protecting yourself online. Let's get back to the show. what I learned, and I've told this story before, but it was such a teaching moment for me. I was on Stossel once years ago, and John Stossel isn't particularly. He's got a good sense of humor, but he's not by any means a humorist, and that's fine. And he's not trying to be edgy, and nor should he. And we were there talking about Joe Biden's gaffes, and I said, and there was this clip of which people have seen of during some kind of like G7 meeting, like George W. Bush, who was president at the time, went behind Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany. She was sitting and he gave her like a quick shoulder massage, and she got just startled because like some guy just grabbed her around the neck, like she didn't see it coming. And I said, look, when I don't remember what Biden had said, I go, Biden's being presidential. George W. Bush rubbed Angela Merkel's shoulders, and Bill Clinton rubbed one out in the White House sink, which I didn't realize until years later was part of the Star Report. Like one time when he was with Monica, he finished in the sink next to the Oval Office, which is like, what a disgusting person. And as soon as I left the stage, the producer said, we're cutting that, right? And I knew they were going to cut it. I'm like, right. And they didn't cut it. It aired on Fox. And I'm like, awesome. Oh. And like, it's one thing if a show is live, I never will put them on the spot because that really is a headache for the staff and not the host. And I think that's I don't want to say never, but never intentionally to my knowledge. But if it's edited, I'm throwing it in there. In fact, when I was on Cash Cab, I was really making the most vulgar, offensive jokes. And I'm like, this is going to be you people's problem. And as soon as I left the cab, they give you fake cash. And I turned to the camera. I said, this is all going up my nose. And that, of course, got cut as well. And they give you a check, which does not translate well. So,
which is a shame, though. That would be the best way to end an episode of Cash Cab.
Oh, I know.
I would imagine Ben Bailey was for keeping that.
Oh, Ben Bailey literally was yelling at me by the end of their cab ride because
really?
I was taunting him so hard, and he has to be amiable like host. And he just was yelling because the thing is with Cash Cab, if you have 3 strikes, you lose everything, right? But if you have any money by the time you reach your destination, you keep it all.
Yeah.
So I had 2 strikes. And when you're in that cab, your adrenaline is so high that sometimes you can't even parse what he's saying because you're in flight or flight mode. So we pull up there. I made it with 2 strikes, so I've won. Me and my friend, and then they want to do a double or nothing, and my only goal was get the heck out of that cab and get the cash. I'm not doing. And he's like, and I'm like, no, give me the money. And he just turns around and he yells, goes, can you pretend to at least consider it for a second? I'm like, oh, okay, Dad. So I did pretend to consider it, and the answer was no.
You didn't randomly get picked up, though, did you? That's
oh no, they tell you you're going to be on some other show, but if you watch the clip, as I get into the Cash Cab, I point to my hand because I'd written Cash Cab on it because I'd figured it out. But let's talk a little bit about like dark humor. Like, for example, here in Austin, it was 80 degrees on Saturday, and then it was like 35 yesterday. And I was always almost going to say it's like as cold as Betty White right now. Like the thing that I don't understand, or I do understand, is like I grew up on Stern. Like going to that place to me is always funny, and I like when people say are too soon. It's like, at what window is it appropriate to be making fun of the loss of TV icon, legend, universally beloved Betty White? Like 9 months? Like, when is it okay? It's never okay.
And then by the time you make fun of it, they're like, yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
It has to be in the moment. Like I wrote something about her, it was pretty positive, just like the last 2 years were too good. And I put up a picture of her from the Mary Tyler Moore show because I always loved her and Ted Knight's relationship on that. It was always very funny to me, even as a kid. And then somebody's like, how'd she die? And I just wrote SIDS. And it's like, what do you want? She died of 99. Like, we should all be so lucky.
Yeah.
Like this woman lived arguably the best life a human being can live when you look at it. Like, that's something to be celebrated. I think if I die at 99 with that sort of legendary status, you should be able to make any joke that you want, especially if it's just, you're not even making a joke about her. You're just making a joke about the fact that she's dead.
Yeah.
It's not an insult to her in any way whatsoever, but people will just find that thing and just be so easily offended that I don't know when we started taking humor so seriously. I think that's one of the biggest problems right now, whether it's stand-up comedy, especially if you do dark humor too, because I've been on stage where I say stuff, and fortunately my crowds know what I do, and the ones that receive me well, you'll get super religious people that might not know what to expect, but for the most part, they're aware of what I do because of what I do on the show and my stand-ups out there. But yeah, every now and then you just say something where, to me, that's the funnest thing. Like stand-up and comedy itself to me should feel a little dirty. Like it should feel a little, it should make you nervous. It should make you uncomfortable. It should, and then take that discomfort and let the laugh out. That's what I love about comedy, is how absolutely uncomfortable somebody can get that you can't control what you're laughing at. It's a beautiful thing to me.
Yeah, it's like the British version of The Office, which was much more cringy than the American version. I don't mean cringy in the sense of you eye rolling, cringy that you're watching this and you're like, you feel physically like uncomfortable. There was this one shot off the top of my head. I mean, every 5 minutes in that show, there was something where you like want to just kill yourself. But they
Yeah.
had like a fire alarm, and there's the elevators weren't working, so they carry the girl in the wheelchair down half a flight, and they just abandon her there, and the camera just zooms in on her and she just looks up and waves, and you're sitting there and you're like, this isn't even a real fire drill, just get her downstairs, you pieces of crap. It's excruciating.
It's that show is to me, and I love that show, but it's hard to watch. Like it
Yeah.
feels like at points you're being punished, but then the payoff is so good. But he's so uncomfortable in that show and makes everyone around him and what I liked about that show, and way more than the American Office, is the other people in the office aren't just all going at one guy. A lot of them just also provide the discomfort with the humor.
Oh yeah.
So it works so much better in that way than the American version. And Gervais does it. He had a show called trying to think, it was with Warwick Davis, the dwarf who plays Leprechaun.
The Liam Neeson one,
Yeah, oh, it's so funny.
that scene, yeah.
The life's too short. And he finds his troll on MySpace, and he goes into this classroom because he basically just wants to taunt the troll in front of all the other kids who are in like 5th grade. And then you look, and the kid's in a sip and puff wheelchair.
Oh my god.
It's so uncomfortable. And then you just see Warwick Davis like talking to the camera, like, I think that worked out. And behind him is just like the wheelchair, and it says "kick me on the back," and all the kids are throwing backpacks at him and stuff. And it's so uncomfortable that I was crying laughing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was so well done. Like the way that Gervais can drag that discomfort out, especially in television, and I think is his best medium.
Yeah, there was I think the most horrifying sketch is from that show when Liam Neeson goes in to meet Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and he decides he's going to start doing improv, and he's like, no, we're doing it right now, and they're like, okay, Liam Neeson, and they go, okay, what's the scene? It's like, we're in a doctor's office, and he's like, okay, I have AIDS.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, and he's just also dead serious.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, okay, how'd you get it? I was with a woman who was unclean. She was from a starving African village, and that's all she had to sell was her body. And they're like, okay, let's take two.
It's just, and he's in like the Taken voice.
Yeah.
That's all she had to sell was her body. Oh, the best is when it starts, it was a flower shop, and he goes, sorry, we're closed. And Gervais is like, no, in order for the scene to take place, you would have to be open. Otherwise, it just stops right there. It's no idea. So he just tanks like the first 3, and then it's just the darkest place for the rest of it.
Wait, but that's the thing. Like, Steven has a pretty upbeat kind of perspective, and I'm sure a lot of his staff are normies. Like, when you're pitching some of this stuff, does it ever feel like you're the pariah in the room?
No, I think people find it relieving, honestly, like a lot of the people that work there, because they get to do something a little bit different. And a lot of them will jump on board with it. Like they're pushing the envelope kind of in a different way than I do, which I think is why I'm there as a bit of comic relief. because I'm not really pushing a hard political stance or a political point. I'm pushing it more from a comics perspective. So I think when they realize it's just parody and kind of just making fun of something, they kind of enjoy it. I usually get everybody on board. And I mean, and Steven agrees with it too. You know, there's just certain things that he does that he has very strong opinions about that he wants to put out. And I completely respect that. Anthony was like that too. I knew when Anthony wanted to go on a rant and wanted to talk about
Yeah.
his opinion, and I knew when to sit back because they believe in something much, I don't know, in a different way that I do. I believe in the same things, just not in the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Um, there was also just I just want to throw this in. If you read the oral history of Saturday Night Live called Live from New York,
It's a great book. Yeah, I
there
read
was a
it.
sketch which now would never get through, but Saturday Night Live people used to be so much more avant-garde, especially when it first started. You had Andy Kaufman there.
Dude,
Um, you
Michael
know,
O'Donoghue was an amazing writer.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and I don't remember the front part of the sketch. I'm remembering that it was with Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger's girlfriend. Maybe I think maybe they're married, and they're basically having some kind of vapid conversation, blah blah blah. Like, oh, like maybe I'm conflating it with Krusty the Clown with his shoe puns when he was hosting live, and then the last moment, like Jerry Hall walks in and announces to them, "Your father has gone and hung himself." And
Yeah.
it's a complete, insanely dark non sequitur. And I really need to find this sketch because you're watching it, you're like eye rolling, you're like, oh god, this is so boring, and it's just like record scratch of the century.
That to me is the best kind of sketch in comedy. I think that's why I liked Kids in the Hall a lot. Because I grew up in Detroit on the border of Canada, so we
Yeah,
got the Canadian Broadcasting Company. So I would watch this show that nobody really had seen, at least who I had talked to at the time. And I always liked how dark it was willing to go. Like you would have death, you would have. I remember one was just so crazy. It was Kevin McDonald just kept growing a beard on vacation, and then he kept shaving it, but then the beard would instantly grow back until the beard finally threw him off like a 30-foot balcony and just like kills him on vacation. And then it just cuts to another guy going, I think I'm gonna grow a beard. So it's just this beard that murders everyone. And I just love that stuff as a kid. It was they had one called The Girl Drink Drunk. And it's still one of my favorite sketches where, and I'm an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic, and this is like it's so funny because it just dissects alcoholism in such a funny way. He goes out, he has a drink at a business meeting, and he's like, it's like some raspberry thing with a straw and an umbrella, and he's like, oh, that's really good. So by the end of it, he's like hollowing coconuts out in the closet at his office and like making margaritas and pinatas and like and pina coladas, and they call him in to fire him, and he's just like covered in different like fruit stains all over his shirt because he's just hit rock bottom with girl drinks. And to me, that stuff is just, it's dark, but it's so silly and good at the same time. Even the hang yourself thing to me is funny, like just dumb stuff like Toonces the driving cat. It's a cat that kills everyone who gets in a car. That's the pitch. And it was great.
I don't know if you know this, but for me, like when people ask me like, "What's your line?" Like, "Where is it too much?" I think Kids in the Hall may have crossed it because when they were first starting out, they would come to New York and perform in like the Village,
Yeah.
and I think it was Kevin would be the AIDS fairy, and he would sprinkle glitter on the audience, and this is like 1984.
Oh, it might have been Scott Thompson.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it could
and
have been Scott.
yeah, and the audience like all knew people who had like died that morning of
Oh, of
AIDS,
course. Yeah, like it just came out.
and they're just like, this isn't it, guys. And I'm like, I don't even see that that's really that funny so much as it is just like, hey, AIDS is prevalent.
Oh, that's horrible. I don't know. To me, I guess I wasn't there, so I'm gonna laugh, obviously. Of
Yeah, but
course.
we can laugh at the discomfort, but I don't know if I was in that room. Maybe I would laugh because I was so uncomfortable. I don't even know what I would do. I would just be. I know I'd be mortified, but I don't know if that would be good mortified or bad mortified.
Well, it seems to be so ignorant on AIDS at that point. They're like, "Is it really AIDS dust? We're not sure if it's
Yeah.
airborne yet."
Um.
Like, but yeah, I think that sounds like a Scott Thompson bit. But yeah, that would probably be Yeah, that would probably be, yeah, doing a 9/11 joke, you know, 10 blocks away from the building on that day.
Well, you know what Joan Rivers said after? So she was supposed to be interviewed by someone from, I think, New York Magazine
Yeah.
that week. And very famously, there was a restaurant at the top of one of the towers called Windows on the World. And the woman called to reschedule. And Joan Rivers says, "Oh, do you want to have lunch at Windows on the Ground?" And it's just like, oof.
Wow. Well, it was a couple days later, Gilbert Gottfried did a roast, and I can't remember. I think they cut it out, but then the footage was available later. And he said, "Sorry, I was late. I had a layover at the Empire State Building."
Yeah.
It was like days after.
Yeah. He's amazing. That's when he lost his Abflack
Yeah, that
sponsorship.
was one of them. Yeah, yeah. I remember, yeah, he had a sponsorship that he did lose.
Let's talk. How long did you live in New York total?
Almost 3 years.
And are you guys in Houston or Dallas?
We're outside of Dallas a ways.
Oh, okay. So when was the last time you were in New York?
The last time I was in New York was, I mean, other than just flying in to do a gig in New Jersey, the last time I was there was in March, when maybe March or early April when I left the show.
Okay. So is there any part of you that misses New York?
I miss the show. I miss doing the show.
Sure.
I'll put it this way, I loved New York when I got there. I had never experienced anything like it. I loved it. By the end of it, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It honestly, it was heartbreaking. When I first lived there, I was in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and then I moved to Harlem, which I was over by like
Wait, I didn't know you
135th.
started in Bensonhurst. That's where I grew up. We're in Bensonhurst. What was your address? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Boy,
Do you remember what train stop you were?
mm-mm,
Okay.
not off the top of my head. It was
Okay.
I know there were a lot of it was still Italian, if that helps.
Okay. So
The
yeah,
whole
that does help.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we had like, Gambinos and stuff that were still like on the addresses in my
Yeah.
building. So still fairly Italian neighborhood. But I moved from there to Harlem, and Harlem was all right. I mean, I walked to the gym. I did like I was out all the time. It was very it was like Dominican, Puerto Rican, and all these other groups that my friend who was Mexican explained to me how they don't like each other.
Yeah.
And I never knew that, but I like learned it as I lived there. And but it was safe. And then all of a sudden, people are getting stabbed in the park. There's candlelight vigils that I hadn't seen before. There's people just literally shitting all over the sidewalk. There's rats that are bigger than my dogs. Like it just became this, like there's kids doing drugs on the street, OD'd people. Like it was something that I had never seen before, to where I would start taking the subway, but almost every time I would go on the subway, there would be somebody having sex, somebody getting in a fight. Like I remember we played the video of it, but it wasn't my video, but it was my train stop. And it's just a guy standing like Superman, basically fully dressed except his pants are down. And there's another guy sitting on a bench just blowing them, and it's at like 3 p.m.
Oh, I've seen that. I thought that was in Herald Square. Was it? That was uptown.
I thought it was 125th. I could be wrong,
Okay.
but I know it was right off the train that I took, because
Yeah.
somebody sent it to me because they knew I took that train. And that video just was crazy to me because I saw that a lot. And what was interesting about that video is like it looked like neither of them were enjoying it. I was like, who is this for? Like, do you both owe each other $50? And you're like, look, let's just get it out of the way and then we can be friends again. And there was one guy who was eating another guy's ass. And when the train pulled up, they both put their masks on. Like, that was the problem.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. And there were prostitutes down on 135th. I mean, I hope they're prostitutes. If not, they're broken in some other way. But yeah, I'd come down to get the train, and you just see like a guy look over and like pull his pants up, and it was, again, this is like I would leave for the show at like 3:15
Yeah.
to get there by 4. So it was always like, this is when kids are out and stuff. It got so bad that I was like, you know what? I'll just pay the $40 in Uber to go back and forth at this point,
Is that
because
right? Is that what you started
yeah,
doing?
yeah, it just wasn't worth it. Because if it wasn't that, it was then somebody on the train, playing, guitar screaming at you in some, foreign language, or yelling the Bible at you, or whatever it was, just screaming, Spider-Man crawling all over the place. It got to be where it was just all like homeless people yelling and fighting and screaming and arguing, and it just wasn't worth it. I didn't feel safe at all.
Hey guys, you're welcome with Michael Malice is brought to you by Progressive. Progressive helps you get a great rate in car insurance, even if it's not with them. They've got this nifty comparison tool that puts rates side by side. You choose a rate and coverage that works for you. So let's say you're interested in lowering your rate on car insurance. You go to progressive.com, you get a quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's rate, and then their tool will provide options from other companies, all lined up and easy to compare. All you have to do is choose the rate and coverages you like. Progressive gives you options so you can make the best choice for you. You could be looking forward to saving money in the very near future. More money for, I don't know, noise canceling headphones, puzzles, whatever brings you joy. Get a quote today at progressive.com. It's one small step you can do that can make a big impact on your budget. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates comparison rates are not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Happy New Year. And what better way to start the new year than with a new pair of underwear? And there's no better underwear out there than Sheath underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off, and you could get one step closer to being an underwear model like myself. What makes Sheath so unique? They've got this dual pouch system, one different pouch for one part of your anatomy, another part for another part of your anatomy. They've also got a women's line of underwear, but since women are not allowed to listen to this show, it does not really pertain to the product. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off, and you're going to have the most comfortable underwear you've ever worn. I wear them every day. The first time I tried them on, I'm like, what is this? And now I am so happy to have the support I need. And you guys should support the underwear that supports the show and so many other shows that you like. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off. And you will be very happy in telling me you're welcome. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, that's what people, when you're a New Yorker, and people criticize New York, you get defensive and you're like, oh, you guys are just weak. And then when you leave, you're like, wait a minute. Every time you're on the train, and it got really bad really fast. So this isn't just your perception. I've lived in New York all my life. And things really kind of collapsed. And it was funny because I had this tweet about how this was like the third time in a week or second time in a week, let's steel man it, where I saw someone just smoking on the train. And I just made the comment, I'm like, that means like rape and murder are next. Like, that's how it works. Like, once one thing's not getting stopped, then, people just kept testing boundaries. And I got all this blowback like, oh, you're just weak. What's the big deal? It's just a cigarette. And when all is said and done, if it had ended with just a cigarette, that's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world, but it's just indicative. And then as soon as I left, there are just articles, just like blatant violence, people get, and it's this like my subway stop, some girl like punched somebody else for sitting in her seat or something like that. And people don't appreciate to what extent New York subway culture is a bunch of people who are actively engaged in pretending nothing's wrong.
Yes, that's a good way
by
to
the
put
end,
it.
I was there every time I was on the train, something was wrong.
That's a good way to put it. And that's kind of what it was, where you're used to like the bands outside, people
Yeah.
asking for money. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that never bothered me at all. But when it got to the point where you'd see like these videos at like our stops of, like near Times Square, it started with Elmo touching kids, and then you had actual like somebody trying to rape a girl in broad daylight. Not even broad daylight, you're in the subway, but there's people around and
Yeah.
nobody's helping. And it's like, why are you worried you're going to be called a racist or something? Like, no, everybody just ignores it. And I think de Blasio is a cancer. I mean, I think that he ruined that city. I mean, and I can't say, obviously, I mean, it takes a ton of people to do that to a city
Sure.
like that, but I do largely blame him. And I'm from Detroit. Like, we've had our fair share of mayors, but none of them, like Kwame Kilpatrick, to me, is not a tenth of the criminal as de Blasio. To be able to do that to the greatest city in the country is disgusting. And when we were at Compound, I remember things were starting to shut down after COVID, like businesses were being lost.
Yeah.
And somebody left this really nice oak furniture next door, like this giant conference table surrounded by chairs. And then we started calling them the corporate bums because
Yeah.
within 10 minutes, it was just surrounded in people, doing heroin, smoking crack, just, it was incredible. And I remember I was walking to CVS and this one girl's just walking and I don't know what she was smoking. It could have been crack. It wasn't weed, but she just takes this big hit and just blows it right in my face as I'm walking, which had never happened before. And it was little stuff like that where
Do you
then
have
I'd
to start
walk.
counting days again?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, right then. So yes. Anyway, so 4 days go by. I don't remember what happened, but now
I gotta get a new chip. Oh well, it
yeah.
was worth it.
Yeah, no, I paid her to do it. And yeah, that if you know what, if anything, that really helps you stay sober. Because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is the rock bottom that you always want to avoid on every corner now. And it once the rioting happened, that really bothered me. And it's not again that it's not that I was afraid of it or it was necessarily happening right there, even though I mean it kind of did. But I would be at like CVS or like a Walgreens where people would just walk in and walk out. Nobody would do anything. It just became, like you said, a bit of the Wild West. And when I got there, it I don't want to sound ridiculous, but it really was this incredible city. It was
Yeah.
vibrant. It was so much fun to perform on stage. You could go up everywhere doing Anthony's show, being on with Artie. Like that was a dream come true. Like it was honestly the most incredible city. And to watch what happened to it is sad, just beyond words.
So speaking of sad, let's talk about this. I'm sure you grew up just as much as I did in Howard Stern.
Mhm.
What do you think of where he is now with his, you know, career and persona?
I've thought a lot about it actually because I do understand the idea of getting older and trying to play, I suppose, to the public a little bit, where you might do what was that AG America's Got Talent
Yeah.
or America's Got Genetic Troubles because everybody who wins has a birth defect. But um yeah, AG, so I kind of understand doing that and I understand part of it, but I also have to look at him as he's only been on this planet what, 70 years?
Right.
And the way that he defined radio and now has turned into what he is doesn't make sense to me. I'll put it that way, where he attacks people. For example, he attacks the unvaccinated. That's his big thing. Or he just doesn't have the voice that he once did. There's not, it seems very humorless. It seems so safe that I can't even believe it's the same guy. Like you would expect there'd still be a little bit of a reverence left in him. It just to me comes off very boring.
Yeah, I think it's he's become his dad
Mhm.
because he would I think his dad's name was Ben, if I remember correctly. Like he would always, do these impressions, or maybe he even played voicemail messages from his dad, if I'm remembering correctly. But his dad was kind of this angry old scold, I think, who even worked for a radio station, had the same job for many years. Thought Howard was a good for nothing bum, but he was this kind of irascible character, just this kind of get off my lawn, angry old man thing. And I can very easily, if Stern has this anti-vaccinated position, especially with his age, that makes sense to me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But Howard in the '90s wouldn't have just been go get vaccinated. There would have been sketches, and there would have been it would be very easy to find the humor in it.
There's so much humor in it now where I look at that with SNL too, because I grew up loving Saturday Night
Yeah,
Live. And now I watch it and I don't want to say propaganda, but it's clearly pushing a narrative and there's obviously a sponsorship from a big drug company. And then I loved Colbert on Comedy Central and now he's doing dancing vaccination syringes on his show
yeah,
as a comedy bit. And to me, that is insane. Like there's nothing funny about any of that. It's just crazy to me. And when I look at Stern, yeah, I would assume he would still poke fun at it, make fun of it. Like, I understand that he's not going to be the same, I mean, for lack of a better word, racist that he once was in doing those kind of sketches. But when him and Artie were on is when I was industrial painter, and I would listen to them every morning and just be crying laughing. And even then it was like the right amount of edge. They were really playing to my generation at the time. And I was probably like 18, 19 years old. And that to me, there's not even a little bit of that left. And that's what I don't understand about Stern.
Yeah, I the first time I countered Stern, I tweeted about this. He had this show on Channel 9, which was like a local news affiliate in New York City, and they filmed in Secaucus. And he had on Ebert and Roper. And I thought for some reason I'm like, I just stopped. I paused on the channel. Roger Ebert I thought was always smart and gave a good interview. Um, and I didn't know before the interview, but Ebert had a wife who was African American. And Stern is just asking him, do you ever play in bed that you're the slave master and she's your slave? And I'm a
Holy shit.
kid. This is on Channel 9. I couldn't believe, I've never heard anything like this. I'm like, how is this real? And
Yeah,
Ebert, to his credit, went with it. He's like, Howard, I know you're doing a bit, like whatever. He's like, I'm not. I'm
right.
just answer the question. And Ebert's like, I'm not going to talk about. He wasn't offended at all, and he knew
Yeah.
he's getting himself into. So that kind of gave Howard a little bit of cover. But cut to now, and he has Hillary Clinton on, and Hillary feels safe with him. And it's like, I can't think of any person who, like, the idea of Hillary Clinton sitting down with that Howard Stern, it would have been unthinkable.
Well, and even somebody like Lady Gaga or a lot of these people who are extraordinarily left, you wouldn't have assumed. I mean, I guess you would assume they do their show for promotion, but you're
Sure.
right. Like he's sitting with Hillary Clinton and siding with her, where it's like, why don't you play the tapes of when Bill was getting impeached?
Yeah.
It's not even, there's not
Or,
even
or,
a,
or you know what he would have done? Like, sorry to interrupt you. If
no, you're
this
fine.
was Stern in the 90s, he would have gone through the Clinton kill list because there's all
Yes.
these people who are around the family who coincidentally got killed and be like, all right, did you murder this one? And she
Yeah.
would say no to all of them, but he would at least have her on the record. Did you murder this person? Did you murder
Yeah.
Vince Foster?
Yeah, when is Ghislaine getting murdered? When is,
Yeah.
like just going through the list of 100 people? This plane went down mysteriously. Yeah, I absolutely see him doing that. And there's nothing left of that. Like, and you look at somebody like Norm Macdonald, who sadly died last year. And he was somebody who he would go on The View in front of this very same
Oh,
people
yeah.
and be like, yeah, Bill Clinton, he's a murderer. And they're like, you can't just say that. And he's like, no, but he killed a guy.
But it's
Everybody
very
knows he
known
killed.
that he's a murderer.
Yeah, everybody's aware that he's a murderer, and they're like, "No, you can't just say that and accuse somebody." He's like, "Oh no, it's not an accusation. I mean, he killed a guy, right? Everybody knows that." So you still had that. Like, he never got rid of that edge or that part. He was
But
still
you're
who he was.
forgetting there was one part during that view, and I have a screen cap of it.
Yeah,
Star Jones, who was at her heaviest, goes, "You just got audited." And she cracks herself up, and the face she makes is so crazy. Please, everyone, go find this clip. It's just like one of the more insane daytime things that's ever happened. But yeah, to your point, it's just like the whole. And I say this as a troll, like my shtick is when I go on these shows, I want the host to be scared, even though I know I'm not going to do anything that's going to put them in a bad spot because that's not fair to them.
when I think that's what Stern was the master of, and growing up on it and watching the E show was always, again, like you said, that discomfort. It wasn't for us, like, of course, you don't mind, like, the porn stars and everything when you're
Right.
that age, but we didn't watch it for that. That wasn't what we thought we really did just watch it because we thought it was really funny. Me and a group of other kids just getting high and watching a show that we loved, and it's just absolutely, I don't know. It just I would have retired kind of a legend instead of turned into what just looks like a corporate shill. And I understand that's where money has to come from, but at this point, with what the corporations are doing, with what pharmaceutical companies are doing, with all the confusion going on, I think taking these firm stances like that on a show that big that goes against the grain of everything that you helped create
Yeah.
makes zero sense.
Yeah.
This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Fetisi.
I love hearing people's stories of resilience and grit. This is why I created this podcast.
We are very excited to welcome Jim Gaffigan, Yasmin Mohammed, Glenn Beck, Tim Dillon, Abigail Schreier, Jeff Garland, Ayan Hirsi Ali, Sam Harris, Heather Hying, Jonah Goldberg, Ben Shapiro, Glenn Greenwald, Sarah Shahi, Colin Quinn.
If there's a culture of victimhood, then let's tell stories of grit and survival.
Subscribe and listen now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's get back to the show. How do you react when people get? It's funny. I got it. Sometimes people tell me on Twitter, "Oh, you'd never say this to somebody's face," and they're not wrong. But I would never say anything to somebody's face. Like, there's really no situations where, like, I'm at a party and someone comes up to me and says, like, those Betty White jokes are offensive. It's like, I'm not talking to normal people about anything. And if I'm engaged in a conversation with a normal person, my only goal is to get out of this conversation as quickly as possible. I'm not going to be going back and doing your mama jokes, because there's no point. I don't want to talk to you further. I want to vacate this situation as quickly as possible. What do you do when people get, like, offended or taken aback at your stuff?
I used to care, and now I'm
Okay.
just at the point where I realize that I'm not for everybody. I mean, there is that vocal majority where they do exist, like you said, on Twitter, or what somebody might say to your face, but that does create an interesting point, because in real life, they're not offended by it when they're sitting there talking to you. They're not as bothered by it and up in arms about things that are offensive, especially if it's in private. They only are when it's in public and they can virtue signal or look like they're above everybody else. That's the only time it comes up. So to say you wouldn't say that in public, it's like, yeah, but you wouldn't even complain about it in public.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right.
And that's really, it only exists in that medium. Now, if it's during a show and I might hear like a boo or a groan, or like this week I was just joking around. I said, I think the new pope should be Donald Trump, just to piss people off. He just have a giant hat that said Trump, and you just hear like somebody in the crowd go, fuck Trump. And I'm like, that's your takeaway? Kind of just shame them a little bit. Like that's what you got from that totally real thing I just said that I meant every word of, because comics are now held to the same standard, or actually a higher standard than
Yeah.
politicians or anybody else. So you look at it that way, and yeah, I don't really care anymore. And being at Compound was helpful with that, because you dealt with the internet, you dealt with people coming at you, and
Yeah.
eventually it becomes white noise. And I never thought that would happen, because when you first get people that hate you, you're like, this is crazy, why? And then you realize people just hate everybody, and you just have to deal with it. I mean, it's either that or quit, and I don't want to quit. So like it, you don't like it, but the changing my voice or being somebody different on stage, I won't do it. I've led my life a certain way. I've done tons of things that I regret. I'm not worried about being canceled, because like, what's there to cancel, really?
Right.
I mean, the idea of cancel culture is just ridiculous at this point. It's the same as people say Rogan's canceled. No, is he? Hundreds of millions of dollars. And then you have Chappelle's canceled. No, he's not. Chappelle's the last point of his last special that upset everybody was that the transgender movement was more swift and successful than the black movement in America. So the internet decided to turn around and prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody got upset with him for having that opinion. So at this point, I think people need to start drawing a line between comedy and completely serious statements that should be taken wholeheartedly. I mean, they're not the same. Everything in comedy is not true. That's part of the fun of it.
What's really fascinating to me is watching the dynamics of the propaganda. And you don't have to have any opinion on Joe Rogan and his views on COVID or vaccination whatsoever.
Right.
But this is what happened, which is not in dispute. All or most of early 2021, or whenever he went over to Spotify, there
Right.
was article after article that said Joe Rogan's no longer relevant. The Spotify deal killed his career. No one's listening. They did a breakdown. There was one article I even saw, which had a bunch of repeat guests, including myself. And they said, this is how many Twitter followers this person picked up when he was on Rogan previously. And this is how many Twitter followers this person picked up when he was on Rogan, when Rogan's on Spotify. This show, and so they were mathematical about it, to their credit, and they had receipts. And then now the articles are all, everyone's listening to Rogan and it's dangerous. It's like, wait a minute, like 5 minutes ago, you were saying he's completely irrelevant. He's lost his audience. No one cares. And now he's like, he must be stopped because he's engaging in genocide.
Absolutely. They have no idea which way to actually sell it to you, but it's a lie. And that's the biggest problem about it. And I believe Stern has gone after Rogan several times. And I remember times when he went after Shafir, and you look at that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that he's disagreed with them publicly, where it's caused some kind of ruckus online. But again, I mean, who knows? But with Joe, and I've just met Joe. He was on our show on Compound, and he's just a guy who seems to. I relate to him in the sense of I have that kind of moderate to right view where I do want to listen to what people think. I do want to hear what people have to say. I think conversations are actually important. I mean, look, I don't agree with Crowder a lot of the time, and people enjoy that about the show because I'm a different voice than I wouldn't even say far right, but than just right wing completely across the board. I'm not that person. So to have these other opinions out there is important. And I think the popularity of Joe Rogan shows that America does feel a certain way, at least half the country, because that is a name who comes up. It doesn't matter any walk of life I talk to. It can be, my buddy who's a waiter, or it could be my friend who's a doctor. It's just anybody is aware of him and listening to him, or at least listening to some of his shows because of the guest. And instead of trying to attack it and take it down, they should be using that to advantage to create an actual dialogue. But they won't, because the goal is division.
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting because I don't watch podcasts, so I've never seen Steven's show. That's not disrespect to him.
No,
but
I don't either.
But
or that show. Or
but he's on my radar screen, right? Yeah. Like he'll be trending. There'll be a sketch that gets people I follow retweet or post somewhere. So I am aware of him. I'm aware of the Young Turks. People retweet their stuff. Sometimes Cenk Uygur will say something that goes wide. It'll come across my desk. Hassan Piker, whatever his name is, I'll come across that. There's all these different venues that these different outlets that come across my desk. I have never, not once, I'm not exaggerating, seen anyone who I follow on social media retweet or post a Howard Stern sketch. I don't think I know a single person who watches his show. And I have audiences who are young, I have audiences who are older, and I don't know who his audience is at this point.
That's actually a very good point, because I've never seen one. And the only thing that I've seen is when I'm looking up certain bands, because I like to find new music, and I'll have people on there that I like. So the only reason I'm watching it is because they happen to be doing a live performance that's on his show. And usually it's not their best song, in my opinion. It's a little bit watered down. It's morning radio still in that sense. But that's what I do like to see. Like, I'll look for new bands. But he's just a very small part of it, where he's like, it's almost cringy, because he's like, I'll do my best not to sing along. And you're like, aren't you Howard Stern?
Yeah.
But that's the only time I'll watch it. But honestly, like, as far as like the jokes, the interviews, any of that stuff, it's been at least half a decade, if not longer.
Are you liking Texas?
I love Texas. I really do. It's nice. The people are friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I like it a lot. I don't know. It just feels like an entirely different world. What about you? You enjoying it? Because you're in Austin, right? Am I allowed to say that?
I'm having just the best possible time. It's
That's
just
good.
Absolutely amazing. I don't miss New York for 1 second.
I was going to say, it was hard though for you to pull the plug on that, wasn't it?
It was very traumatic. It was very traumatic. I still haven't learned how to drive, and I've taken no steps to learn how to drive. That's that.
I'll teach you.
We're gonna have to figure that out, but that's kind of drinks. Funny. Yeah, just get some pina coladas.
No, I would teach you though.
Oh no, I got a lot of people who
I'd
want to
be
teach me.
honored.
I think Alex Jones might be teaching me. I
Oh,
might have
he's
to.
probably the guy. The dude's got a Hellcat. That's the car you want to
Yeah,
drive.
yeah. Have you seen that thing? It's
Oh,
insane.
yeah, he drove it to the studio. It is such an awesome car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
Are you hitting the road anytime soon?
Yeah, I don't know when this airs.
This is airing Wednesday on the 5th.
Okay, yeah. So on the 8th, I'll be at the Fox Theater in Hayes, Kansas, and then I will be in Sacramento, California, and other dates at davelandau.com. But yeah, I do have a lot of theater dates coming, and then February 12th, I'm gonna record a special. Crowder's gonna be there too at the Majestic Theater in Dallas, Texas.
What's that town in Kansas?
Hayes.
I've never even heard of it.
No, me neither. That's why I'm hoping people come out. There's
So
not much to
what do
do.
I mean, you travel a lot. What do you do? And this is no disrespect to these towns, but they all shut down early.
Yeah.
Like, what do you literally do? Just stay in your hotel room?
Yeah, I shut down early too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just because honestly, ever since I got sober, I have no interest in nightlife
Right.
unless it's a concert or like I go to like a basketball game or something. But other than that, I don't well, I went across the street with you to the bar and a couple people a few times, but that
Yeah.
was still like afternoon. Like I enjoy if I'm going with my friends, but as far as like a loud bar and just talking to drunk people, it just bores me to death.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, half the people are like, "So what do you do to quit drinking? Like, what should I do?" It's like, really, you're concerned right now,
Right. This is yeah. Let's worry about this tomorrow when you feel like hell.
right? Exactly. This is I'm not going to sell you on anything right now when you're ordering shots, and I don't care. Like your life to go out and drink, I think is totally cool. I think that's great. You can control it. It's just not for me.
Yeah, yeah. And not everyone who gets drunk a lot is an alcoholic.
No, not at all. And that's just the reality of it. Some people just like to self-medicate, and that's whatever gets you through life, in my opinion. You know when you're an addict, believe me, because you're usually in a jail cell going, well, this is not how I thought it would end. So there's a real hard bottom you have to hit many times, I found out.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
my favorite part of this interview was actually hearing how much you're liking Austin, because I know it was hard for you to leave New York. And I know that might sound ridiculous, but I do know how much you love that city.
You are welcome in Austin.